This week on the Wheelhouse, a behind-the-scenes look at retail politics. For Connecticut Public, I'm Frankie Graziano. This is the Wheelhouse. It's a show that connects politics to the people. We got your weekly dose of politics in Connecticut and beyond right here. And with the midterm elections around the corner, one word is about to be everywhere: likability. It's a quality candidates spend millions of dollars trying to project and cultivate. But what actually makes a politician connect with voters? Is it authenticity? Authenticity, whatever the way I said it. Authenticity. Charisma. A compelling story. This hour, we're exploring the making of a politician. From messaging and media training to campaign ads and public image, we'll look at the strategy behind building a candidate who resonates with voters. Joining us is Jill Barkley Roy. There's Jill. She's director of Emerge Action Fund. Her work involves recruiting and training candidates for office. Jill, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, we got to ask folks, what are the qualities they look for in political candidates? Hit us up, comment on our YouTube live stream. That's right, we're live on YouTube right now. Or give us a call, 888-720-9677. We're going to kick this conversation off by asking you what Emerge is and how it came to be.
So Emerge America is an organization that recruits and trains Democratic women to run for office and win. We turned 20 last year. In the 20 years we have existed, we've trained over 7,000 women to run for office, and over 1,300 of them are currently in elected office.
So spoiler alert, you're telling me that women can run for office and win?
That is true.
That's amazing in 2026.
You wouldn't know it, but they can, and they do.
When people think of successful politicians, they often focus on charisma or personality. You spend your days recruiting and training future candidates. How much of being successful in politics is natural talent, and how much of it can be taught, would you say?
I would say that, what we're looking for in a candidate is someone who has a heart to serve, and who cares about their community and is passionate about the issues. And I think those are things that cannot be taught. But what we can do is we can encourage our candidates at Emerge to lead with their authentic selves, and to bring their full selves to the table and to talk about what they care about. We can help train them on message. We can help train them on how to get some earned media, how to have a good speech, how to have a great plan for reaching voters. But that authenticity is something that they bring all on their own.
When someone decides they want to run for office, what are all the pieces that have to sort of come together before voters ever see them on a debate stage or in a campaign ad?
Well, at Emerge, we love to make sure that we're always telling our candidates to prepare first and foremost as human beings. Is your life ready for this? What do you have capacity for? Is this the time to run for office? Are your loved ones ready and on board? Are your friends there to support you? What do you need to do to get ready as a human to run for office? And what kind of support are you going to need in terms of maybe shifting some of your caregiving responsibilities, making sure that you can take the time off work to run, et cetera. And then we recruit them through our program, and we train them, and we teach them all the nuts and bolts of putting together a successful team and a successful campaign plan to win.
Are you speaking to potential candidates about safety more now than you have in the past? Is this a real thing now where we're worried about political violence in the job that you do?
It's an absolute real thing. It's not lost on me that this week we saw the 1-year anniversary of the assassination of politicians in Minnesota. And that's real. It's a real threat. We've known that political violence exists in word and deed, and that women, especially women of color, are at risk for these threats. That's real. We train on that. We train on how folks can keep themselves safe online and physically, what they need to do to make sure that we can increase their safety and well-being. But I think it's more than that. It's also the emotional and mental preparation for facing these kind of attacks and these threats. And that's something that we work really hard to do. We provide our cohort model of all of our trainings. You train in a group, and hopefully you form really deep connections with your fellow participants, and you have people to lean on when things do get tough.
Typically, who are some of the people behind the scenes helping shape a candidate's message, public image, communication style, and just overall, I guess, campaign?
Well, at Emerge, we're part of that. We train on that. We train on how to create a really great stump speech, how to essentially use your story, what significant moments that have happened in your life, connect that to an issue that you care about, and connect that to why you're running for office and why you should win and be allowed to serve. There are also, obviously, a candidate can get volunteer staff, they can hire staff. There's lots of campaign consultants that can come in to help you. But we always encourage our candidate to make sure that you're shaping your message with your authentic self and your story.
You talked earlier about getting your mind right and getting yourself correct. Is there things are so personal nowadays, and people might be reticent to get help, particularly if they're in the spotlight. So, like, can somebody who's having any kind of mental health challenges, can they like take anxiety medicine, maybe even ADHD medicine nowadays? Are they going to be concerned that other people are going to find out about that?
I mean, I think that if a candidate is addressing their mental health through therapy or medication, I would encourage them to talk about that
Sure.
because so many Americans, so many of their constituents struggle with mental health and well-being. And seeing someone in elected office lead on that issue too and say, hey, healthcare is important, mental health is important, here's how I take care of myself. I think that's all part of leadership.
Emerge recruits women who may have never pictured themselves as politicians. I'm wondering what typically catches your attention and makes you think this person is the person that ought to run for office.
What always catches my attention is first that passion for service, that care for their communities, for their state, for this country that we love, and a desire to serve, a desire to see change, a desire to do something about it. That's what I always look for, that spark for service, and someone with a really great story and a really great background. I think that our stories, the things that we've been through in our lives, shape us and help us once we're in elected office to lead from that place of having been there ourselves.
Are there certain personality traits that connect best with voters?
Yeah, I think realness. I think authenticity. I think someone who can talk about their own experiences in a way that resonates with others, who can show up as their authentic self. You know, so many times we hear that women need to change how they speak, change their appearance, change their hair. At Emerge, we disagree with all of that. We want a woman to show up as her authentic self and lead from that place of being a real person so that the women and the kids, the girls who are watching, know that they too could be in the same position.
A lot of politics involves ego. Talk a bit about how you manage that. If you approach a potential candidate and they're, I guess, initially resistant to the idea of running for office, what does that say to you?
It says that they're absolutely normal. So at Emerge, we know we have to ask a woman on average 7 times to run for office
Oh,
before she'll
wow.
actually consider it. Yeah. So women often think that they might not be qualified. They might not know everything they need to know. They might not be strong enough to run for office, and they sell themselves short. So we really have to encourage them and build them up and let them know that they can do this, that they won't be doing it alone, and that they are absolutely qualified.
I don't want to get into the secret sauce too much, but now I'm like so curious as somebody who's a producer also and does a lot of research. Are you paying attention to local news, national news? I don't know, certain TikTok trends or Instagram topics, anything like that. Like, how do you find these people?
Well, one thing that we did at Emerge is that we knew that, especially in these most recent years, where I think our very democracy is unfortunately under attack, we knew that we had to meet folks where they were at. So we created a training at Emerge Action Fund called Meeting the Moment. And what it does is it takes our participants through a place of attending a protest, expanding their activism, getting more civically engaged, thinking about maybe serving on a board or a commission locally or statewide, and then laying the groundwork to run for office themselves. So we're literally trying to build a pre-political pipeline of women who are ready to step up and run.
Are the rules of what makes someone likable and electable different for women than they are for men? So, like, does the approach change in any way in that regard when you're dealing with a female candidate?
I don't think the approach changes, but the conversation changes. I think that there's a grace gap for women who run for office and maybe make mistakes or have things in their past that they're going to be judged for. I think that women are held to much different and unfortunately higher standards than white men are. I think that we have to prepare our candidates for this and make sure that if there is something in their past, if there is a mistake that they've made, how are they going to lead on that and get ahead of it and bring it out so that they can talk about it and hopefully make it part of why they're qualified to run and serve.
Two women with extensive political backgrounds, certainly very qualified to run for president, recently have run, Kamala Harris and Hillary Clinton. Can you talk about some of the challenges they faced in winning over voters?
Yeah, I think that voters were hesitant to get behind women who were running for the highest office in this land. We still haven't smashed that ultimate great glass ceiling. And I would say that whether or not folks realized it or meant it, I think that sexism did play a role. I think that racism did play a role when it came to Vice President Harris. And I think that, again, they were held to much higher standards than their male counterparts would have been, especially their white male counterparts. But Emerge actually got started because of Vice President Harris. She's our original Emerge woman. She was running for district attorney out in California, and a group of women who were helping her out there realized that we needed to have a program that would train and support women who were going to run for office. And that is how Emerge was founded and got its start.
Women in politics are often expected to project competence and strength while also conveying warmth and relatability. That can be a difficult balance. How do you coach people through those competing expectations?
I think that we don't always see them. We try not to see them as competing. We try to see that you're a full human being. So sometimes you're talking about strength and how you need to approach an issue from a strength-based place. And sometimes you're talking about how to approach an issue from an empathy-based place. And that's all part of who you are. So sometimes you'll be up there talking about, tax policy or foreign relations. And sometimes you're talking about, unfortunately, maybe a school shooting. And I think that you just want to bring your full self and your full range of emotions to the table at all times.
When you watch a campaign ad, speech, or a debate, what are you looking for that tells you whether things are going the right way you want it to, whether it's working?
We're looking for stories. We always encourage our candidates to tell a story. Think about a moment in their life or a story of someone that they've met along the way and bring that in. So bring that in when you're talking, when you're introducing yourself to voters, bring that into a campaign forum, bring that into the debate. Find a story that connects to that issue and connect that to why you're running for office.
You've been listening to Jill Barkley Roy, somebody I'm enjoying getting to know here, Director of Emerge Action Fund. Jill, great to have you on the show.
It's great to be here. Thanks so much.
And where can more folks learn about Emerge?
They can visit our website at emergeamerica.org and find out all about our candidate training programs all across New England and the rest of the country. And they can follow us on Instagram and find our link tree there.
After the break, we continue our behind-the-scenes look at how politicians build their public persona and gain public support. What do you look for in a politician? Give us a call, 888-720-9677. And if you're looking for more ways to get involved, tell us what political issues matter most to you. Fill out our election survey at ctpublic.org/election. Comments may even be featured in an upcoming episode of the show. ctpublic.org/election. There's more Wheelhouse coming up right after this. You're listening to Connecticut Public. This is the Wheelhouse from Connecticut Public Radio. I'm Frankie Graziano. As candidates gear up for 2026 midterms, they're all trying to answer the same question. What makes voters like and trust a politician? Today, we're taking apart the modern politician piece by piece. The speeches, slogans, ads, image making, and behind-the-scenes strategy that go into building a public persona. Joining me now, Liz Kurantowicz, Republican analyst and owner of the Drury Group. Liz, great to see you today.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Mercy Quaye is the founder and CEO of the Narrative Project. She also teaches part-time at Quinnipiac University. Welcome back to the Wheelhouse, Mercy.
Thanks for having me.
So great to have you on the program, guys. Folks, what are you thinking about with the candidates? Give us a call, 888-720-9677. Is this part of your calculus? Do you care about what the candidate looks like, likability, all that jazz? Give us a call, 888-720-9677. Mercy, we spent a lot of time talking about politicians as if they're simply somebody we just see on like a TV screen or something like that. But behind every candidate, there's usually like a team. You heard there of all the people that you could have access to at Emerge. Yeah. Usually a team making lots of decisions, maybe about messaging, appearance, advertising, social media, whatever. Let's start there. When a politician wants to present authentically, what does that look like?
You know, what I really love about where the conversation is starting is from segment A, really talking about what is your authentic story to begin with. Because a lot of times people, men in particular, when they want to get into a race, and one thing I'll say is I love that this is an entirely female panel, right? When men want to get into a race, right? When men want to get into a race, it almost doesn't matter what their background story is. They don't care, right? Constituents often don't press them on it. Like that sense of who they are doesn't often come into the story unless their opponents can use it against them or unless they can say, I'm just like you. That relatability always matters. I think that one of the biggest things when we talk about who is setting up a candidate from the behind the scenes, it's obviously the messaging. How are you going to say what you're going to say, not just what you're going to say? Policy priorities matter a great deal, but are you the messenger for that policy priority is also a big deal. Frankly, you know, what seems inauthentic is even if you have the right policy priority, if you don't understand why that policy matters to your constituents, it's going to feel as though you're being tone deaf. You're tone deaf to your constituents, their needs, because you don't actually come from where they come from. And when I think about anti-racist public relations, or specifically public relations to connect with communities of color from low-income backgrounds, you don't necessarily have to be from that community to be relatable, but you need to show something that says you understand that community. And without that piece, your campaign's not going to go a long way towards convincing people you understand them.
So how do you do that then? Do you have to go to again, I'm going to show my Hartford bias here. Do you have to go to Whaley Avenue in New Haven or something like that?
Well
like what are people going to do? I was going to say the north end of Hartford, but
yeah. So in New Haven, and actually not just in New Haven, around the state and wherever you are, you have to be in community.
Yep.
And when you are developing those initial relationships, you have to maintain them throughout the entirety of the campaign. Far too often what we see is a candidate will come in, they'll have that initial conversation, that initial relationship setting conversation, and then you never hear from them or see them again. If you start from a place of that initial town hall, and that initial town hall wasn't for show, you didn't do that to put out the press release afterwards, you didn't put it on social media or some kind of content, you might have, thanked people on social media, but you didn't put out content. When you came back, if you came back to them later in the campaign and asked them for something, or asked them, I'd love to sit across from you and have a conversation for social media at that point. Those sorts of relationship building tactics build relationships, not just for that campaign, but for the long term. And that kind of investment in communities shows your communities that I'm invested in what you have to say, not just as a relationship builder, but as a relationship maintainer.
I want to talk about authenticity. Also, then, Mercy brings up a good point about making it sort of organic. How do you do that?
Well, look, I think the first and most important thing is that you have to actually care about an issue, and you want to run with purpose. And I think that's really important to the authenticity of a campaign, because if you're a candidate who is simply doing this to check a box, voters are going to see that. If you're using it as a stepping stone to the next big office you want to run for, people can see through that. And I think that creates a barrier between you and the voter. And I think I completely agree with the fact that you can't just show up on election day and ask for the vote. And I think that becomes significantly problematic for incumbents because they're so used to winning and being elected. A lot of times they forget where they came from. And that's how you see opportunities for challengers to come in and sort of make a way for themselves, because they're listening to these constituents for the first time. And these constituents maybe didn't have an audience with their elected for quite some time. But I think it really starts at the basic of every time you start a campaign, whether you're starting a campaign for an alderman seat or you're running for governor or president, you really start at the basic level of saying, okay, what is our message grid? How are we going to talk about ourselves? What are our priorities? What's the difference we want to make? How are we going to talk about our opponent, their record, their message, their failures, etc.? How's our opponent going to talk about themselves in the positive? How are they going to address their issues? And how are they going to talk about us? And if you don't do those things, you have failed straight off the jump. So that's really how you kind of figure out, okay, I'm running for this office. These are the issues that I care about. This is how I think I can have an impact in the community. This is why. This is my why. And here's how I'm planning to make a difference. And then you go build a campaign off of that. That makes it actually a lot easier to get the candidate authentic and fired up and talking about things. It's funny because you see, just look at the governor's race right now. It's hard to get the governor fired up about something as unsexy as fiscal stability, right? And so, where you see him now getting really excited is when he's talking about the Iraq War, for example, right? That was sort of his entree into politics when he ran against Joe Lieberman.
Yeah, I saw he was quoted with Graham Plattner, who's running, I guess, in Maine, and they were asking.
So that's just like one recent example of something to me where when you're trying to get somebody fired up, people can spot a fake a mile away. When something happens authentically like that, like I said, talking about fiscal stability is not exactly going to get people's mojo going.
It's not the sexiest thing. Does this keep you up at night? Does like the authenticity thing keep you up at night? Is it something you can overthink, I guess?
I think don't boil the ocean. I mean,
don't boil the ocean.
If you just have to be who you are. I've seen some great campaigns that have been run around how boring a candidate is. Mm-hmm. right? I mean, I saw one of my favorite ads is like a guy who's running for like, you know, a treasurer or comptroller or something like that in a southern state. And the entire ad is his wife standing there doing all of these chores around the house, listening to him drone on about numbers. And that's the whole ad, right? Sometimes the thing is the thing.
And here's that ad for you right here. Let's take a look at it.
There are 1 million people in this community. I mean, that is 0.01 to the 8th power. If you round it off, it's 0.
All he wants to do is fix things.
So I got this 18-wheeler that's parked in this neighborhood, fumes all over the place, but quite frankly, it's not a code violation. You know, I think I like helping around the house here.
Please re-elect Gerald. Please.
It's perfect. It is absolutely perfect. They're taking something that, like, you know, they were sitting there like, man, oh my gosh, if we have to listen to this guy talk for one more second. They made it the thing.
And I also think that what we see here is, as a candidate, do what you know and promote what you know. If you try to tap into something that you don't know, it's going to be really obvious to the voter. And I think that the other thing that we see here is a willingness to lean into the things that are sort of working in a social zeitgeist, right? Like the moaning and begrudging back and forth between a husband and wife, very regular doing laundry. It's understanding who you're.
Everybody loves Raymond.
Right, exactly. Right? It's like who's your audience, right? And who's going to find you deeply relatable.
It is honestly one of my favorite ads. So I'm so glad they pulled it. It is, I think, exactly what a campaign should be. Yeah. And when you talk about slogans and developing those kinds of things, I mean, I always think of those things and it's like, are you running for student council?
Right.
Right? Like, you know, I mean, I think people, I don't know. I think we're to a point where a lot of those things sort of, they kind of like glaze over, like, here we go. You have to be real with people. And
it's not an attack ad.
It's
also not an attack ad.
It's also not an attack ad, right?
Well,
so that's what I'm trying to say is that, like, a lot of folks will say, like, you guys in the media are not positive. I'm sure politicians will get this too. Like, you know, like everything is so negative. There's nothing negative about that ad.
People wouldn't, first of all, people wouldn't run negative attack ads if they didn't work. Yeah. Number one.
Yeah.
Number two, timing is everything. If you look across the country, the average deficit for name ID for a challenger running in a congressional race is between 30 and 50%. If you're running for Congress and you're running as a challenger, hear that again, the average name ID deficit is between 30 and 50%. Your number one job as a challenger is to get people to know who you are. And that is how you do that. You are in an ad like that, when you're introducing yourself, your goal is to help people understand who you are, get to know you, and why you're doing this, right? I mean, you have to sort of start that narrative arc. You can't go straight to negative. And Josh Elliott is going to have that problem here in Connecticut in this governor's race, and as is Ryan Fazio.
Hey, it's Josh again. I just sent you a text message. I don't know. He's got the I've just made a joke to Liz there. This is for the uninitiated. I will say that if you know Josh Elliott as I do, because I've interviewed him before, I am now a part of the campaign list, I guess, where I'm getting some of these texts that say, hey, it's Josh again. I'm running for governor in Connecticut. So you get some of that.
The reason that I bring that up is because your first job is to introduce yourself to the voter. And right now, Josh Elliott is tasked with doing two things at once. He has to get people to know who he is and understand his brand and his campaign, because he's got a significant name ID deficit, and then try and get them to not vote for Ned Lamont, which is very difficult to do in a very short amount of time with a limited budget. And it's the same issue that a candidate in Connecticut on the Republican side, when you're running as a challenger, you're in a name ID deficit, you have fewer resources, and you have to get people to elect you and not elect your opponent.
Fascinating point, because Governor Lamont is going to face his first primary since he started running for governor. First time in quite a while a sitting governor has faced a primary here in Connecticut. The ad you just saw was from Gerald Doherty, by the way. He's a member of the Travis County Commissioner's Court in Texas, representing District 3. That was, I guess, in 2016. And to Liz's point, it's been seen many times, 4 million times, something like that. Deja Fox. Let's talk about Deja Fox. I'm going to talk about that with Mercy candidate in Democratic Party's primary election for Arizona's 7th congressional district in 2025 special election, ultimately lost, but in the pre-interview process, I understand that you said she's a good example of someone who really knew how to capture, I guess, a bigger audience.
Yeah, capturing a bigger audience in such a small amount of time. She ran a campaign in about 3 months and raised about $600,000. 25 years old, came from a background of being a digital strategist, kind of a content creator. First came on the scene when a video of her at a town council challenging a congressman goes viral. She's about 16 years old and working at a gas station, right? So from there, she goes directly into political work, working with Planned Parenthood, and when she sees this opportunity to replace a Democratic congressman who died, right? She sees this opportunity, she jumps into the race, and she's got about 3 months to extend her name recognition, to raise money, and to challenge not just his daughter, but a number of other candidates in that field. Ultimately, she did lose, but what she showcases is there is a pathway towards the name recognition that Liz is talking about, and oftentimes people don't win their first race out, right? That's a big piece. So if you are not expecting to win your first race out, then what is the goal of your first campaign? It's getting your name out there. It's getting your face, some household recognition, some name recognition. It's also leveraging whatever that campaign was into your next thing. And for her, she's now doing political commentator. She's a political commentator for CNN. How can she leverage that into the next thing and also be able to advise other campaigns on how to tap into Gen Z is her big question. Her entire campaign was run, similar to Mom Donnie, was run on social media. She was doing videos from her couch, oftentimes barefoot. And in the pre-interview, in the prep, I often talked about how she's got a little bit of pretty privilege as well. So I think at one point she spent a few months as a model. She's got a little bit of pretty privilege. And because of that, being right in front of the camera, right, and also being young, Gen Z, being a digital native, all of those things worked to her advantage. Raising $600,000 in 3 months is no small feat, particularly when you're doing it from small donors, right?
Yeah, small donations.
Small donations. You're doing it from folks who are all millennial or younger, not just in Arizona, but creating some name recognition around the country. I'm getting her ads here in Connecticut. That says a great deal. I'll also say that Kamala Harris came out to support her campaign, right? And talked a great deal about how, as a young candidate, even if this campaign doesn't turn out successful for her, she sees a very long runway for her in politics. And I think when we see other campaigns across the nation, the similar Gen Z, millennial candidates around the nation, Mom Donnie or Helena Moreno down in New Orleans, these are examples of unapologetic, unafraid. We're just going to say the thing, sort of in that spirit of, I'm not sure if either of you are familiar with the content creator Suzanne Lambert, the mean girl leftist, right? I think she would call herself more so a progressive, but she's the person that started started bullying Republican makeup and really talking about, was like, yeah, this is what Republican makeup looks like. So in that framework, if you are seeing a content creator give you permission to kind of be unafraid and be kind of more real with your messaging as a politician and seeing that that's resonating on social, then when you're taking on a campaign for yourself and utilizing social to do it, you can say things like, Habibi, release the files, right? And that really works.
From Connecticut Public Radio, this is the Wheelhouse. I'm Frankie Graziano. After the break, more on what makes a politician electable. Let us know what campaign messages are resonating with you, maybe some historic ones as well. Hit us up, comment on our YouTube live stream, or give us a call, 888-720-9677, 888-720-9677. It's our June pledge drive this week. We hope you'll support the programs you love, including the Wheelhouse, with a donation. Thanks for listening. Here's Cat and Pat, or should I say Pat and Cat?
And a very good morning to everyone. Here is Kat, and I guess I'm also here with Pat.
Here is Pat. It's like a Dr. Seuss story.
A little bit. I was thinking maybe it's like a new show. But for those who are not familiar with Kat and Pat, I'm Catherine Shen, host of Where We Live. And Pat, who are you, Pat?
I'm Patrick Scahill, and one of the reporters and editors here.
Well, we're really excited to be here today, and it's been a really fun conversation listening to, what makes a politician electable. And I can't help but think about how this show makes it very donatable. Wouldn't you say?
I would absolutely say that, Kat. And yeah, Frankie and his team each and every week are bringing you a really, in-depth and expansive look at politics here, not only in Connecticut, but across the nation as well. So if you value those perspectives, if you value what you hear on the Wheelhouse each week and what Frankie and his team bring you, call up right now and support it. The way to do that is 1-800-584-2788, or the even better way, it's a little bit faster, ctpublic.org/donate or ctpublic.org. Click on that red donate button, make your pledge there. We do have a goal this hour. We're trying to make 5 donations this hour. And I'll just get us started here with a suggestion, Kat. $8 a month, that'll get you the Wheelhouse mug. If you're watching the YouTube stream right now, you can see a picture of it. There's also a picture at ctpublic.org. But it's a great mug. It's got Ollie the Octopus on there. And you're going to really enjoy drinking whatever beverage you have out of that mug. So check it out, ctpublic.org.
I agree. You absolutely want to get your tentacles on this mug. It's really cute. And I mean, if you're not into cute, it can also be really cool.
That's true.
Drinking whatever beverage out of that very cool mug. And like Patrick said, it is $8 a month, and you can get your very own Ollie the Octopus Wheelhouse mug. And again, it's ctpublic.org/donate, or you can give us a call at 1-800-584-2788. And another reason why I love this conversation, because it's focused on being your authentic self.
Yep.
And they're talking about politicians, of course, but I think it also relates to the people who are behind the scenes bringing the news to our listeners. The people who are both in front of the camera and at the mic. And for our listeners, you actually have to care about the issues and the world around you for wanting to donate. Very much, I feel like similar philosophies to what they're talking about today, where a politician actually has to care about the issue to run for office. So I'm kind of seeing a lot of parallels here.
Absolutely, yeah. And we know that our listeners really do care so much about this station. When you become a member, it's taking that caring relationship to a new level. You really feel like, hey, I'm an active part of the team here. I'm an active producer in the work that the Wheelhouse team is doing each and every week, and the work that the newsroom is doing. So I want to say thanks to Chris and Jerry out in Burlington, Connecticut. They left a very nice comment with the donation, the generous donation they made online. Just says, the truth, exclamation point. Thank you for what you continue to do. Well, Chris and Jerry, thank you so much for your pledge. We also heard from folks in Westfield, Massachusetts this morning, Gales Ferry, Connecticut, and a donor from New York also got on board. So they are all supporting the truth. They're being their authentic selves, and they're showing up with a donation, asking you to do the same right now. ctpublic.org is how you can do it.
I mean, we love an exclamation point, and I feel like when we're talking about the Wheelhouse and when we're talking about our amazing colleague, Frankie Graziano, there are several exclamation points after the name Frankie Graziano. So thank you all so much for joining us this morning and making donations. And as you all know, it's been really challenging this year for us, but we feel safe because we have listeners like you who continue to support us, and we continue to appreciate you as well. So give us a call, 1-800-584-2788, or log on to ctpublic.org/donate. And thank you all so much for your generosity.
This is the Wheelhouse from Connecticut Public Radio. I'm Frankie Graziano. If you've ever watched a political drama, you've probably seen a character whose job it is to make problems disappear. Shout out to Charlie and Annie. They like that from Spies in Disguise when Tom Holland says that. Disappear. That's for you kids. Think Olivia Pope from Scandal. She makes problems disappear, right? And yup, those people exist in real life too. Behind every speech, campaign ad, social media post, and public appearance, often a team making strategic decisions about how a candidate presents themselves to voters. This hour, we're talking with some of the people who do that work and exploring what makes a politician connect with the public. We still have with us Liz Kurantowicz and Mercy Quaye. Mercy, before the break, we were talking about social media and Deja Fox, candidate in Democratic Party's primary election for Arizona's 7th Congressional District. Social media, they're a big key that we were talking about. Is it making it easier or harder to build trust on social?
I think building trust on social is easy if you are a trustworthy person. Yeah. If people can see right through what you're saying, or to something Liz said just a moment ago, if you're not the kind of politician who can go straight to face, straight to camera and make a point, if you're someone who needs a lot of prep, you don't know your issues well enough to speak on it in a moment, if you can't take your phone out and, selfie style, say the thing, a few things are going to undercut you from the beginning. One, there's a generational divide. If your opponent is much younger than you and is that generation, that digital native, what's going to happen is you're going to lose time in your prep. And by time you're ready to go to camera, you need that polished background, you need your talking points, you need the teleprompter. Deja Fox has already put out 3 videos, right? And that's already circulating. I think the thing that we often miss when it comes to social media is, one, it's incredibly forgiving. It's incredibly forgiving because we have, the move to a 24-hour news hole to fill meant that there was a little bit more forgiveness around how quickly you got information out, right? If you didn't have the entire story yet, but you were first to report it, there's forgiveness about not having all the details and all the information. And that's where you got the line, here's what we know now. Translating that over to social media is if you're the first to talk about a story, you're going to get the first to views. The algorithm is going to preference you, right? More people are going to see you.
Algo gonna algo.
Yeah. Right? And so because of that, I think there is a benefit. Users on social, you can have a grainy video. You can be a little bit more, unprepared because you got out first. If you are someone, and I think this is what we're seeing here in Connecticut now as well, where Governor Lamont, when he puts out a video, it's not quick. It's often polished. He often needs a lot of time to prepare or some talking points that even if those talking points are ready to go, right? There's still, you can tell he's using the talking points, right? And so where Josh Elliott, who's going to have an uphill battle going against an incumbent, his preference there is he can pull his phone out and just go. And there's a big difference in that.
And then you have Ryan Fazio, who's going to be running from the Republican side as well. Liz, I'm going to throw a few questions at you. First, I said something about like Olivia Pope and making problems disappear. Do you ever feel like your job is actually like that? Are we exaggerating a little bit? Do you feel like that's kind of like something you have to do?
So I don't entertain myself with watching shows about things that I have to do for work. I'm a Golden Girls fan, so that helps me kind of
I love the Golden
out.
Girls.
So
I have a shirt that says, I am Dorothy in the streets and Blanche in the sheets.
Good for you.
I can be sassy.
So all of that to say, my favorite campaign-related movie or show is actually the Will Ferrell movie, The Campaign, which if you haven't seen it, you really
With
should.
Zach Galifianakis, yeah.
Oh my goodness, it's hysterical. I find myself, no, the hope is that you are prepared and that you can avoid problems and be the one causing the problems, right? I mean, as a Republican strategist in running campaigns, frankly, in places where Republicans don't win, our job is really to be the problem, to be the one poking the bear and causing the issues. And I can say I've done that with my candidates with great success. And the goal there is to, kind of put candidates who are incumbents and used to not being challenged, kind of put them back on their heels and make them have to think and have to answer questions and to be on defense in a way in which, frankly, they are very rarely having to perform. So,
when you see candidates like making mistakes, not yours, but anybody, like
mine would never.
What kind of mistakes can you make in trying to connect people? I don't want to say people lie, but like it can be easy. I'm sure you're asked a million questions, right? Like I think I was talking to you in the break. Like you could not just slip up, but there are so many. The prep is real, right? That's what we were talking about. Yeah,
I mean, but again, I think that is where you have to, first of all, not having to act is probably the most important piece. If you are who you are and that takes an incredible amount of confidence to be able to just sort of put yourself out there in an authentic way and take it on the chin day after day, which is what politicians and candidates are doing. I don't have sympathy for them because they've chosen to do that. But it is something you have to be prepared for, and it makes it a lot easier if you are saying and doing things that you believe in. So I think that's really fundamental to all of this. And having a team who's prepared to understand and help you better gauge what are the issues, how does that align with what you've said in the past, how does that fit with the campaign that you're trying to run. But I think really it just comes down to having a good team and being prepared and not being afraid to be who you are. Is probably the most important thing. Now, that's not to say that you're not going to have campaigns that have issues. And I think that no matter how well you vet a candidate, things are always going to come up. I am a kind of person, and as an advisor, I say tackle it on the front end. Get in front of it, be open, be transparent, and that is how you're going to make
Mercy,
it
quick comment from you here. We're running out of time, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think the biggest piece that, particularly on the left where we're seeing candidates mess up is your voters are not going to be loyal to you just because you both carry a D, right? Like there is a little bit.
But I'm Brad. I'm Brad Summer.
Right.
I fell out of the coconut tree.
It's not going to work. And so if there's dissonance in your campaign, if there's some contradiction from something earlier in your campaign and now you've changed your mind, you need to make that make sense to your voters. I'm not saying you cannot change your mind as a candidate. You just need to draw the lines to people and bring them along the journey with you.
That's Liz Kurantowicz, Republican analyst and owner of the Drury Group. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for
Can't wait to have you back. Same thing with Mercy, founder and CEO of the Narrative Project, also teaching part-time at Quinnipiac University. Thank you for being here, Mercy. I'm excited for Mercy Summer happening on social media here shortly. Today's show produced by Chloe Wynn. Patrick Scahill edited it. Thank you so much, Dylan Reyes, for your work. The rest of our team here at Connecticut Public, it was fantastic. Let's go Wheelhouse. Tune in next week for a new show. You're listening to the Wheelhouse on Connecticut Public.